सत श्री अकाल नॉर्थ अमेरिका न्यूज़ 'ਚ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਕਮਲਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ। ਬੁਲੇਟਿਨ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਹਮਾਸ ਜੰਗ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਢਣ ਲਈ ਚਾਰਟਰ ਉਡਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ। ਵਾਈਟ ਹਾਊਸ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਐਲਾਨ। ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸਟਨ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਨੇੜੇ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਗੋਲੀਬਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 5 ਪੁਲਿਸ ਮੁਲਾਜ਼ਮ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ। ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੀ ਜਾਂਚ ਜਾਰੀ। ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਤੇ ਗਾਜ਼ਾ ਲਈ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕਰਵਾਏਗਾ $10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਮਨੁੱਖਤਾਵਾਦੀ ਮਦਦ। ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਐਲਾਨ। ਹੁਣ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਿਸਤਾਰ ਨਾਲ। ਅਮਰੀਕੀ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਐਂਟਨੀ ਬਲਿੰਕਨ ਨੇ ਮੁੜ ਤੋਂ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਦੇ ਸਮਰਥਨ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਬਲਿੰਕਨ ਇਨੀ ਦਿਨੀ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਦੌਰੇ ਤੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੇਲ ਅਵੀਵ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਹੈ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਬਲਿੰਕਨ ਨੇ ਹਮਾਸ ਅਤੇ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਯੁੱਧ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਖੌਫਨਾਕ ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ।
We're doing everything we can to secure the release of the hostages, working closely with our Israeli partners. I brought with me to Israel our Deputy Special Representative for Hostage Affairs, Steve Gillen, who joined my meetings with the families and will stay on the ground here to support the efforts to free their loved ones. I also had a chance to see up close the genuinely inspiring solidarity of the Israeli people in the wake of Hamas's attacks. When I visited one of the many sites where citizens have swiftly organized efforts to collect, to sort, to distribute donations to those in need, including many families who've been displaced from the south. I had a chance to meet with some of the volunteers, several of them dual U.S.-Israeli citizens. One young couple told me how they narrowly escaped with their own lives when Hamas terrorists attacked the Supernova Music Festival. They told me about their friends who were not fortunate, who were killed at that festival. Others taken hostage or still missing. In our time here in Israel, everywhere we've gone, we've met people who've been touched in one way or another by Hamas's bloody hand. A loved one, a friend, a classmate, a neighbor, a colleague, killed, maimed, missing. We encountered a nation knit together by grief, but also a nation united in resolve. The United States shares that resolve. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel. From here, I'll go on to Jordan, where I'll meet with His Majesty King Abdullah and with Palestinian Authority President Abbas. And then over the coming days, we'll visit with leaders in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Qatar. Across each of these engagements, we'll continue pressing countries to help prevent the conflict from spreading and to use our leverage with Hamas to immediately and unconditionally release the hostages. We'll also discuss how we can continue to make real our affirmative vision for a region that's more peaceful, more prosperous, more secure, more integrated. And in fact, that is the choice. And the choice in some ways has been made even more stark by the actions of Hamas on Saturday. One path forward is a region that comes together, integrated, normalized relations among its countries, people working in common purpose to common benefit, more peaceful, more stable.
ਇੱਕ ਹੈਰਾਨੀਜਨਕ ਕਦਮ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਅਤੇ ਮੁਨਾਫੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਫੋਰਡ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਬਾਦ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਟਕੀ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਤੋਂ 8700 ਕਾਮਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਨੌਕਰੀ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਕੈਂਟਕੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਫੋਰਡ ਮੋਟਰ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਦੀ ਮਲਕੀਅਤ ਵਾਲਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਟੋਮੋਬਾਈਲ ਨਿਰਮਾਣ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਮਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਨੌਕਰੀ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਤੇ ਚਰਚਾ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਵਾਈਟ ਹਾਊਸ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਕੈਰਨ ਜੀਨ ਪੀਅਰੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਸਨ ਹੜਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਆਰਥਿਕ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਤੇ ਨੇੜਿਓਂ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਰੱਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਬਾਈਡਨ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਸਨ ਹਰ ਸੰਭਵ ਕਦਮ ਚੁੱਕੇਗਾ।
going to monitor this very, very closely, this situation, certainly the economic impacts. But look, the president says this all the time. You hear me say this all the time. We respect unions, their right to use their option for collective bargaining. We believe that works when both sides come together and negotiate and come together. In this instance, there are multiple sides, and and come together in good faith to get a win-win agreement. And that's what we want to continue to see. We're not going to talk about specific tactics or the specifics in negotiations, but certainly we're going to continue to monitor.
You can tell us, White House officials obviously have been in Detroit and have...
Yeah, I don't have any travel from White House officials. As you know, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su has been engaged, and so has the senior advisor here, Gene Sperling, have been the two people who have had direct communication, and certainly not part of the negotiation, but offering any assistance that might be needed to the Big Three and UAW. I just don't have any specific engagement to read out or any travel at this time. Ketia.
Yeah, just one quick question. Has the crisis in Israel caused the president's major address on Ukraine to be delayed? And does he still plan to deliver it?
I don't have any update on the president's Ukraine address. I'm sure that we will continue to hear from the president. As he said this week, next week he's going to put forth a supplemental plan on additional funding that he's going to be asking for, and don't want to get ahead of that. Certainly the best path forward. I just don't have anything to share on any remarks or extensive remarks that the president will be giving or might give on Ukraine, but certainly you guys will continue to hear from the president on all important matters.
ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਰੀ ਹਿੰਸਾ ਦੇ ਨਤੀਜੇ ਵਜੋਂ ਘੱਟੋ-ਘੱਟ 27 ਅਮਰੀਕੀ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ 14 ਨਾਗਰਿਕ ਲਾਪਤਾ ਦੱਸੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਵਾਈਟ ਹਾਊਸ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਹਿੰਸਾ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਯਹੂਦੀ ਰਾਜ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਢਣ ਲਈ ਚਾਰਟਰ ਉਡਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕਰੇਗਾ। ਫਲਸਤੀਨੀ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਸਮੂਹ ਹਮਾਸ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਨੀਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਖਣੀ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਚਾਨਕ ਹਵਾਈ ਹਮਲੇ ਕੀਤੇ। ਦੋਵਾਂ ਧਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਦਹਾਕਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਅਤੇ ਗਾਜ਼ਾ ਪੱਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ 2700 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ।
The saddest of news, we can now update the number of Americans that we know have been killed to 27, and the number of unaccounted for stands today at 14. We're obviously doing everything we can to support and inform the families. Now, sadly, 5 more families have now gotten the worst possible news that any family can conceive of getting. And we're going to stay in touch with them as appropriate. Same goes for those family members of those who are unaccounted for. And by unaccounted for, we mean that. We don't know where they are. They don't know where they are. So we're going to obviously stay in touch with them as well. And certainly we're continuing to work with Israeli officials to make sure that we're getting as much context and information as possible that we will share with them. Also, as you, I think, realize, we are all acutely aware of limited availability right now on commercial flights out of Israel and the demand signal by U.S. citizens who may want to depart. The President has asked his team to ensure that we are assisting U.S. citizens who do want to leave Israel and providing them with a safe means of doing that. So beginning tomorrow, the United States government will arrange charter flights to provide transportation from Israel to sites in Europe. They're still working through some of the details of that to assist U.S. citizens and their immediate family members who have, for whatever reason, not been able to provide commercial transit out of the country. And I would add that we're also exploring other options to expand the capacity of doing this, including exploring whether it's possible to help Americans leave by land and by sea. So again, we're working hard on this. We know there's a demand signal out there, and we're going to try the best we can to meet it. I would encourage any American citizen in the need of assistance to please complete the intake form that you can find on travel.state.gov. It's very simple. Go right to that site. There is an intake form. Fill it out. It helps the State Department process these requests. It also helps us get a sense of what the scope of the need is. And I would refer you to state on that. I'm sure you guys are going to ask me that. I don't have hard figures handy with me now. We do know there are certain American citizens that want to go. It's all available through the State Department's website, and I'd encourage them to go look at that.
ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਪੂਰਬੀ ਮੱਧ ਸੂਬੇ ਮਿਨੀਸੋਟਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸਟਨ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਗੋਲੀਬਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਮੁਲਾਜ਼ਮਾਂ ਤੇ ਗੋਲੀ ਚਲਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਮਾਮਲਾ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਘਟਨਾ 'ਚ 5 ਪੁਲਿਸ ਮੁਲਾਜ਼ਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਲੱਗਣ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਸੂਚਨਾ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ। ਫਿਲਹਾਲ ਮੁਲਜ਼ਮ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੀ ਪਕੜ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਦੱਸੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਟਾਊਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਇਸ ਘਟਨਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਹੋਰ ਜਨਤਕ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਖਤਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਜਨਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਖੇਤਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਣ ਲਈ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ।
First, I'd like to say that we're going to provide you with what information we can today. As was previously mentioned, this is still a very active investigation. It's very early in this investigation, so the details we'll be able to provide are relatively few. Shortly after 7 a.m. this morning, members of my office and the Sherburne County Drug Task Force came under fire as they attempted to execute a search warrant as residents in Benton County. 5 members of the task force sustained non-life-threatening injuries and were transported by ambulance or air ambulance for medical treatment. Because all were working in an undercover capacity, I cannot provide their names. But I will tell you that the injured officers include 3 Sherburne County Sheriff deputies, 1 sustained a gunshot injury, and 2 were shot in their bullet-resistant vests. 1 Elk River Police Department investigator was shot, and 1 Princeton Police Department investigator was shot. As of right now, the 2 Sherburne County deputies who were shot in their vests were treated and released from the Central Care St. Cloud Hospital. The 3 other officers were taken to North Memorial Health Hospital in Robbinsdale, where they continue to be treated for gunshot injuries. All are expected to survive. The suspected shooter is Carl Thomas Holmberg, age 64, of Glendorado Township in rural Benton County. Mr. Holmberg was injured during the incident and is being treated at North Memorial Health Hospital. A woman who was home inside the residence during the exchange of gunfire was taken to M. Fairview Northland Medical Center in Princeton, where she was evaluated and released. Task force members arrived at Mr. Holmberg's residence on 190th Avenue Northeast shortly after 7 a.m. today. They announced their arrival multiple times before entering the home. At one point, the officers came under fire. Multiple officers returned fire, and the officers retreated to outside of the residence. At 10:47 a.m., after several hours of negotiations, Mr. Holmberg was taken into custody without further incident. He was transported to North Memorial Health Hospital, where he continues to be treated. We don't know at this point the extent or cause of his injuries.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਤੇ ਗਾਜ਼ਾ ਪੱਟੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਮਨੁੱਖਤਾਵਾਦੀ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਲਈ $10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਮੁੱਢਲੀ ਰਕਮ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕਰਵਾਈ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ 에ਅਰਲਿਫਟ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ 130 ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਜ਼ ਤੇਲ ਅਵੀਵ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਸਹੀ ਸਲਾਮਤ ਐਥਨਜ਼ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫਲਾਈਟਸ 150 ਪੈਸੇਂਜਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਰਵਾਨਾ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ।
We continue to be in contact with the families of the 3 Canadians who are reported missing. We're providing support, and we're also in close contact with the local authorities. The safety and security of Canadians at home and abroad is always our top priority. The situation on the ground is volatile. We're actively helping our citizens and permanent residents come back to Canada. I can confirm that a first Canadian Armed Forces flight has departed Tel Aviv with approximately 130 passengers and has landed safely in Athens. As we speak, a second plane has already landed in Tel Aviv and will be bringing people to Athens in a few hours. And we're working on additional options for those who cannot reach the airport in Tel Aviv. To provide assistance and logistical support, we're also deploying members of our standing rapid deployment team to the region. This is a unit of specialized officials who are specifically trained to help during times of emergencies or crisis. Canadians who wish to leave or who need assistance can contact our embassy in Tel Aviv, our offices in Ramallah, or of course our offices in Ottawa. We're working around the clock to support you. We'll continue to follow the situation as it evolves and continue our efforts with international partners. Israeli and Palestinian civilians deserve to live in peace, in security, in dignity, and with their human rights respected. Canada will be providing an initial $10 million in humanitarian assistance to address urgent needs in Israel and in the Gaza Strip, and Minister Hussein will have more details soon. As events abroad unfold, I want to take a moment to reassure the Jewish and Muslim communities here in Canada who are feeling especially vulnerable. I want you to know that we continue our efforts to keep our places of worship and communities safe. And our government is in regular contact with the leadership of the RCMP, and your local MPs are closely liaising with law enforcement. We must always stand united as Canadians. This is something that is core to Canada. We take care of each other. Here in Yellowknife, the cost of rent has been going up. Vacancy rates are very low, and the people who are, of course, hardest hit by this lack of supply are vulnerable people, including seniors, Indigenous peoples, and those experiencing homelessness. Housing is a complex issue, and we have to tackle it from different angles. During the pandemic, we launched the Rapid Housing Initiative specifically to address the urgent needs of vulnerable people.
ਭਾਰਤ ਸਮੇਤ ਕਈ ਦੇਸ਼ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁਟ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਜ਼ ਆਰਮਡ ਫੋਰਸਿਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਪਹਿਲੀਆਂ 2 ਉਡਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਤੋਂ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ਨ 281 ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਸਮੇਤ ਉਡਾਨ ਭਰੀ ਹੈ। ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਅਗਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਉਡਾਨਾਂ ਭੇਜਣ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਯੋਜਨਾ ਹੈ। ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਬਿਲ ਬਲੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਬਲੇਅਰ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸੰਘੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਅਤੇ ਗਾਜ਼ਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਣਥੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੇਗੀ।
Today we'll be meeting with NATO defense ministers to discuss several issues, including Russia's war in Ukraine, security threats facing our alliance, and Hamas's brutal attack on Israel. We'll be hearing shortly from Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, about the situation on the ground. And if I may, let me repeat Canada's unequivocal condemnation of Hamas's brutal violence against civilians, which is never acceptable, and the protection of civilians must be paramount, and we will call for the release of all those who are currently being held. We also reaffirm that Israel has the right to defend itself in accordance with international law. Currently, Canadian consular staff are working around the clock to support Canadian citizens, and we will continue to do so. And yesterday, we announced that we are making arrangements for Canadian Armed Forces flights to depart Tel Aviv this week, and they will be taking Canadians to Athens, and Canadians will then be transported back to Canada via commercial means. I want to take this opportunity as well to urge all Canadians who are currently in Israel to register with Global Affairs Canada, and we will continue to provide updates as they are available. Today we'll also be discussing Russia's war on Ukraine. Yesterday, Canada announced $25 million in winter equipment and clothing, approximately 2,000 rounds of 155mm ammunition, additionally some smoke ammunition, gas masks, aircraft bombs, and naval ammunition. And most recently, during President Zelensky's visit to Canada, we also announced $650 million in armored vehicles and armored medevac vehicles for Ukraine. We will continue to support them. And of course, later on today, we'll be talking about Canada's responsibilities to NATO and our deployment of troops into the forward brigade in Latvia.
Can NATO jointly condemn the attacks on Israel? And if not, why?
Well, I believe there'll be discussion on that this morning. As I said, Mr. Gallant will be updating all of the NATO defense ministers on the situation on the ground, but certainly on behalf of Canada. We absolutely condemn the illegal and terrorist attack of Hamas upon Israeli citizens, the murder of innocents and the hostage taking, and we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself.
How do you assess the situation about the damaged pipeline and cable between Finland and Estonia?
I know that there is currently an investigation going on there, and I anticipate we'll hear further updates on that this morning.
Do you have troops in the NATO mission in Iraq? The Canadian troops?
Yes, there are Canadian troops present in Iran.
They are training only the Iraqi forces in the south or north of Iraq also?
We have Canadian troops in the region. I am not able to confirm exactly what they're doing, although we are involved in training in the area.
ਨਾਟੋ ਦੇ ਸਕੱਤਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਜੇਨਸ ਸਟੋਲਨਬਰਗ ਨੇ ਬੈਲਜੀਅਮ ਦੇ ਬ੍ਰੈਸਲੇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਮੰਤਰੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਬੈਠਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਅਤੇ ਗਾਜ਼ਾ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਜਾਰੀ ਵਿਵਾਦ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਬੋਧਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਸਲਾਹ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਦੇਸ਼ ਜਾਂ ਸੰਗਠਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਉਠਾਉਣ ਜਾਂ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਨੂੰ ਵਧਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ।
Israel has the right to defend itself, and the conflict, as the conflict unfolds, the protection of civilians is essential. No nation or organization hostile to Israel should seek to take advantage of the situation or to escalate the conflict. Today, a number of NATO allies made clear that they are providing practical support to Israel and doing everything possible to provide for their affected citizens. Ministers also addressed NATO missions and operations, including in the Western Balkans and in Iraq. The European Union joined us. In response to recent tensions in Kosovo, NATO has deployed hundreds of additional reserve forces to our KFOR operation in recent weeks. And we are conducting more patrols in the north of Kosovo. These are prudent steps to ensure KFOR has the forces it needs to fulfill its UN mandate impartially. Belgrade and Pristina must behave responsibly, refrain from destabilizing actions, and re-engage in the EU-facilitated dialogue. This is the only way to lasting peace in Kosovo. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, NATO continues to support the EU-led Operation Althea, which plays an important role in regional stability. In Iraq, our mission is expanding its support to Iraqi security institutions to help prevent the return of ISIS. Terrorism remains the most direct asymmetric threat to the alliance. So today I can announce that Assistant Secretary General Tom Goffers will serve as my special coordinator for counterterrorism. He will ensure that NATO's response to terrorism remains strong, effective, and coherent. Defense ministers also addressed our progress in strengthening NATO's defenses. At the Vilnius summit, we agreed the most robust defense plans since the Cold War. We are now taking the next steps. This means assigning the necessary forces, developing new capabilities, and adjusting our command and control structures. Russia's war on Ukraine is a reminder of the important role NATO's nuclear weapons play in deterring aggression. Next week, NATO will hold its annual nuclear exercise, Steadfast Noon. This is a routine training event that happens every October.
ਪੰਜਾਬ ਭਵਨ ਸਰੀ ਵਿਖੇ 2 ਰੋਜ਼ਾ ਕੌਮਾਂਤਰੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਅਤ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਮੌਰ ਰੁਤਬੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਕਰਾਰ ਰੱਖਣ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਦੇ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਫੁੱਲਿਤ ਕਰਨ, ਇਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਯੋਜਨਾਵਾਂ ਉਲੀਕਦੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਮੀਰ ਤੇ ਗੌਰਵਮਈ ਵਿਰਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਰਹਿਣ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੇ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਮਹਿਲਾਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਰਾਬਰਤਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਆਪਸੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਤੇ ਸਰਹੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸ਼ਾਂਤੀ ਤੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੀ ਲੋਕਾਈ ਦੀ ਭਲਾਈ ਦਾ ਸੁਨੇਹਾ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਯਾਦਗਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਨਿਪੜੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਮਿਲਣ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਸਾਨੋ ਸੌਕਤ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪੰਨ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਭਵਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਤਾਜ ਪਾਰਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਵਾਈ ਗਈ 5ਵੀਂ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ 'ਚ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਮੇਤ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਬੁੱਧੀਜੀਵੀਆਂ, ਸਾਹਿਤਕਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀਆਂ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰੀ ਭਰੀ। बुलेटिन के अखीर में एक बार फिर तो नजर मारते हैं हेडलाइंस ते। इजराइल हमास जंग विचाले अपने नागरिकों को कड्ढण लई चार्टर उड़ाना का प्रबंध करेगा अमरीका, व्हाइट हाउस के वल्लों किया गया ऐलान। अमरीका के प्रिंसटन शहर नेड़े वापरी गोलीबारी की घटना दे विच 5 पुलिस मुलाजम जख्मी, मामले की जांच जारी। इजराइल ते गाजा लई कैनेडा मुहैया करवाएगा $10 मिलियन की मनुखतावादी मदद, प्रधानमंत्री ट्रूडो वालों किया गया ऐलान। फिलहाल नॉर्थ अमेरिका न्यूज़ में इतना ही। मैनू दिओ इजाजत, धन्यवाद।